So continue with macroeconomy. Today we want to talk about comparisons of economic growth within different economies. So the economy of Libya is growing. How do we know if it is growing? We only know if it's growing when we are able to compare it with other countries. You know, they used to say in Africa that you always think your father's farm is the biggest because you've not seen other fathers' farms. Not until you see other people's farm, you would know that, oh, my dad's farm is not as big as I thought.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important for comparison.
It's a perspective.
Yeah, sure. So comparison is about we checking how we fare compared to others. So here, comparison of economic growth performance over time between countries. Economic growth rate performance between countries can be measured through changes in the real GDP. Yes, we would know that our economy is growing because the GDP of the country is increasing based on the output. So which simply means if we have to compare other countries with our country, we have to compare it with their output, which is the GDP, adjusted for inflation. So what are the key economic comparisons that we can use? The first one is the long-term trends. For long-term trends, this can be based on how income and health have improved drastically over the years. So how has income in this country increased, as the national income, which is significantly the output, how has it increased all through the years compared to other countries? That's the first one. The second one is regional performance. Here we can compare different continents with one another. Asia with South America, that's regional. So this applies the rate of growth in different continents. For example, Asian economies, which have shown rapid total factor productivity historically. For Asian economies, they are growing rapidly. Historically, they are the most, they are what we call the emerging economies. Taiwan, China, India, they're growing rapidly. And this simply shows that Asia is the emerging economy. Imagine means economies that are just growing fast. Then we have the recent growth. For recent growth, we're simply going to look at what is happening right now. Then we can compare China with America recently. Because China is the greatest competitors with to America. Do you get it? In terms of exportation. Any question about that? So this is how we compare. We can compare based on trend, we can compare based on continent which is regional, and we can compare based on the recent performance. Is it clear?
Yes.
Then we have the methods of international comparisons. So for the method, it's simply about real GDP versus the nominal GDP. So if you're going to compare your country with other countries, it has to be based on the value that has been adjusted for inflation. Because the value that has been adjusted for inflation will tell us the total volume that has increased in our country. Do you get the point here?
Yes.
Because we are using our real GDP, it will show us how the volume has increased over time. Because if you're looking at the value might be based on inflation. But for you to know the volume that has increased, it has to be measured based on inflation, and that will give you the real value. Then we have the limitations to where you are comparing. When you are making comparisons, there are some limitations to it. The first one is shadow economy. For shadow economy, we're talking about the economy that is not known to everybody. The economy behind legislation. Nobody knows about it. And one of the reasons why we could have, two reasons why we could have that is tax evasion. So people will not declare their economic activity because they do not want to pay tax, or they want to pay less tax. So that, I don't have much time for questions, please. That makes it difficult for them because I'm not going to dispose, I'm not going to declare all my activity. It simply means I'm not going to pay full tax. That's tax evasion. And some people will not be able to even declare their activity because what they do is illegal. And these things are part, money goes through these things. So there's flow of income within them, but this income is not known to the economy. I think it's clear. And second one is sustainability. When it comes to economic growth, there's a cost, which is mostly environment. For every economy that grows, there's going to be resource depletion, there's going to be pollution, environmental damage. So it simply means as far as the economy is growing, we must find measures for sustainable development. Do you get it? And the last one, inequality. When economy grows, the rich becomes richer, the poor becomes poorer. And when we use the GDP per capita, which is GDP divided by the population, to measure it, it does not significantly tell us that income is equally distributed. Because some people have more money, some people have more income than others. So we have billionaires, and we have some people that are living in abject poverty. But when we are measuring the GDP per capita, it's just going to measure the total amount of money we have, not individuals, divided by the total population. And some of the population, income is not equally distributed within the population. So which simply means using GDP per capita to measure, to compare economic growth might not be the real ideal. Maybe we have to use other metrics. Is it clear? What's your question?
No, it's mentioned that for such an economy, there's no paying your friend to the airport, there's also part of the economy.
What?
I was going to say this for the shadow economy. Like, for example, if you have a friend who puts you at the airport in his car, if you pay him like with cash, it won't be counted.
It won't be counted here. So the point about shadow economy is that some activities are done that are not in the consent of the government.
Yes.
So we cannot calculate them.
Yes.
Thank you.